Ruth Langsford digs her heels into £3.6 million home amid complicated divorce from Eamonn Holmes. The Loose Women star has remained living at the property. It's now been a year since Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes sent shockwaves through UK showbiz circles when they announced their decision to separate. At the time, a spokesperson told Hello, Ruth Langsford and Eamonn Holmes have confirmed their marriage is over and they are in the process of divorcing. The divorce is still rumbling on, and it's their family home that could make things quite complicated, according to Emma Spruce, barrister at 4 Petabytes, who has exclusively spoken to Hello about the situation. Where are divorce proceedings at the moment? Emma speculates that the next step for Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford to proceed with their divorce is likely to be financial disclosure. She explains, both parties will need to share full details of their assets, either through their lawyers or as part of a court process if they can't reach an agreement privately. Financial disclosure will form the basis for either negotiating a settlement or letting the court decide. Ruth has stayed put. At present, Ruth remains living at the family home, a £3.6 million Essex mansion, and Emma points out that this could cause issues. If either spouse wishes to stay in the home, it can get quite complicated, she says. While the divorce is ongoing, forcing a sale is very difficult because the home will need to be factored into the financial separation without prejudicing either party's arguments. Emma then points out, ultimately, if one party wants to remain in the home, there would need to be enough financial resources available to rehouse the other. In higher asset cases like these, avoiding a sale of the marital home is more achievable. So, will Eamonn and Ruth go to court to sort this out? Emma thinks possibly not. The parties may be able to resolve matters privately through their lawyers or through mediation, arbitration or other out-of-court processes. These options are becoming very popular as they're more discreet, less adversarial and often, ultimately, less expensive. Since splitting from Ruth and moving out of their lavish family pad, Eamonn has reportedly found a penthouse flat to reside in. The Express reports that it is situated in Kingston, London. The GB News presenter works in London, so being in the city makes sense for his on-air commitments. Eamonn now has a new partner, Katie Alexander, but it's unknown if she has decided to move in with the Irish star. Katie was forced to quash engagement rumors recently after a flurry of excitement surrounded the new couple. Before anyone jumps to the #Ringgate bandwagon, the camera is reversed so. Right hand ring finger, she wrote on her social media post. Ruth and Eamonn, they share a son Jack, 22, while Eamonn has 3 children, Declan, Rebecca and Niall, from his first marriage. GB News halted for breaking update as Eamonn Holmes speaks out. GB News regular programming was halted as presenter Eamonn Holmes announced breaking news from the water regulator, Ofwat. GB News breakfast show was interrupted for breaking news after the water regulator, Ofwat, announced major fines to the UK's biggest water company, Thames Water. Presenter Ellie Costello revealed, Ofwat has fined the UK's biggest water company Thames Water. They've been fined £133 million following 2 investigations into the company. Eamonn Holmes remarked, that's a big fine. They will now pay £104 million for breaches around wastewater operations. He added, this is the largest single penalty Ofwat has ever issued and I think there'll be a lot of applause for it. £18.2 million has been issued as an additional fine for breaches of rules around dividend payments. GB News breakfast show was interrupted for breaking news after the water regulator, Ofwat, announced major fines to the UK's biggest water company, Thames Water. Presenter Ellie Costello revealed, Ofwat has fined the UK's biggest water company Thames Water. They've been fined £133 million following 2 investigations into the company. Eamonn Holmes remarked, that's a big fine. They will now pay £104 million for breaches around wastewater operations. He added, this is the largest single penalty Ofwat has ever issued and I think there'll be a lot of applause for it. £18.2 million has been issued as an additional fine for breaches of rules around dividend payments. As Eamonn commented, interesting, Ellie shared, I think that'll be welcome news to many people who've been aghast by the scenes of Thames Water and after companies in this country. The 65-year-old questioned, I wonder how much money that leaves them. Which prompted Ellie to suggest, well, they've got no money, have they? The duo then welcomed political commentator Oscar Redrop, who stated, I can't think of a more clear-cut, shut case of customers and the British public being failed time and time again on a service. You talk about the fact that they might not have a lot of money left and they've already been struggling, you just worry that this will in some way hit the shoulders, if they try to compensate for a fine like this by passing it on to consumers. Ofwat's chief executive, David Black, said in a statement, "Our investigation has uncovered a series of failures by the company to build, maintain, and operate adequate infrastructure to meet its obligations. The company also failed to come up with an acceptable redress package that would have benefited the environment, so we have imposed a significant financial penalty." The regulator said the money will be paid by the utility giant and its investors, not by customers. Water companies have faced an influx of public outrage over the extent of pollution, and the lack of investment in water infrastructure, rising bills, high dividends and executive pay and bonuses at privatized water firms. Thames Water, which serves 16 million customers across London and the South East, is also in almost £19 billion of debt, and earlier this year narrowly escaped running out of cash by agreeing a further £3 billion loan.